Greetings! Welcome to the devlog for update 26 of Hot Dogs, Horseshoes, and Hand Grenades. We're going to start off as always with a quick sound check. Make sure your speakers aren't up too high. Wonderful! So, we've got something really special for you this week, a whole new mode, but before we get into that, I've got a new toy to show you and some quick changes to a core system that are going to be really relevant to this new mode. So, long requested, slightly delayed, and finally here, we have a Desert Eagle. Chambered in 44 mag, just because I already had that in the ammunition system, and that's what this model was made for. Let's go ahead and load these. Now, for those of you who don't know, a Desert Eagle is, while incredibly iconic in cinema, is not... I mean, it's useful in that it's a firearm, but this isn't really... This is a firearm that's about being big and ridiculous. It isn't about its utility at all. And so for that reason, I've amped this one up a little more than is sort of real, and just in terms of its recoil and its sound and its visual effects, because if you're dual wielding Deagles, you're not here for subtlety, you know what I mean? So just to show these off. Yeah. Let's do that again. Let's go ahead and pop these here. Spawn lock up at the top. Drag in. Yeah. Ha! Far too much fun. Oh, I seriously, I was distracted from working on my my update last night. Just after getting these working, I think I just stood here and must have dumped like 50 mags out of them because it was just far too enjoyable. Wonderful. So yeah, so those are your Deagles to play with. I've actually got texture sets for 2 more finishes on them. I didn't get them done for this week, but they'll go in later. And then the next thing, this is the big systemic change that I mentioned, is that I have altered the way the touchpad menus work, in part to lower the chances of accidentally both activating it and activating functions on it. So the way this now works is that to pull open the touchpad menu, it was taking 0.1 second of holding the touchpad before. It now takes 0.5. And importantly, because the way it now works, you will never accidentally instantly trigger one of its functions on the moment that you open it. Methods on the actual touchpad can be triggered in one of 2 ways. In part because I wanted, or rather, they've always been able to. You've always been able to pull the trigger or click the touchpad. They're a bit different now, in part because I've been trying to find a balance between having sort of near instantaneous access, so being able to pull it open and just grab something to your hand, right? Or pull it open and teleport about with the trigger. But I also want to make it, because we're using the touchpad for other things, I want to make sure that you're not accidentally triggering touchpad actions when you're, say, trying to, say, pull the magazine out of an AK. And so the way this now works is that if you want to use the touchpad click to actually trigger the touchpad action, so like going up a page, you have to hold it for basically about a half a second. So, and you'll see this menu grow as I do so. See how that works? Back, grab, teleport, boop, back out. But remember, if you just want it fast, you can just pull the trigger and it will immediately trigger that action. So I figured that this would be the best way to have the best of both worlds. It's because you're not going to be accidentally pulling the trigger. It's an accidental touchpad click that I'm most concerned about. So give this a shot. I found it really improved things for playing the new mode I'm about to show you, and I had a lot less sort of accidental commands triggered by myself. So yeah. So the next thing here is that we've got just some subtle changes done to the item spawner. I've lowered it to where the tables are, as a number of our shorter users commented that they had trouble hitting the back button that was up here. This is a temporary measure. I eventually am going to have a sort of a control that you can grab on the side to move it up and down to adjust to you. As well as actually having this on a movable panel, but that'll be sometime in the next couple weeks. That'll be present. Also, a number of you couldn't find the G22 Auto. It's under here, under Machine Pistol. There we go. And also, those of you who could not find an spawnable ammo panel, it is now present under Miscellaneous Utility. So, you can grab one there. Awesome. So, without further ado, let us go ahead and jump into our new mode. I'm going to, just so you know here, I'm going to be jumping in after the introduction narration, so as not to spoil things for you. See you in a sec. So, we have entered the MeatGrinder. I won't go over necessarily what's said by our erstwhile narrator when you enter. I'll just tell you what's going on from a more tangible standpoint. We've got some starting equipment. It actually looks like I super duper lucked out here with a G22 Auto with an extended mag. You will always get the flashlight to start with, and in rare moments you will actually
that device is special. Kind of like you, only, well, actually special.
Aww. And occasionally get a secondary light source. Seriously, I have absolutely lucked out here by getting the tactical flashlight attachment. You will have a starting melee weapon of some sort. Not quite so lucky here because the reach on this isn't fantastic. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, there's no mag duplication, there's no item spawning. You have what you have and find in this mode, so use it well. Let's go ahead and destroy those. Doesn't look like we got anything out of them. And on we go. God, already? What? What? Two of them? We are getting out of here. We are just running. Oh, shit. Keep going. Whew! Wasn't expecting that. It seems the random generator giveth and the random generator taketh away. Oh my goodness. You'll notice I ran out of ammo there real quick. Just because you have found a magazine does not mean that it's full. And in this case, it was most certainly not full. Right, that's a locked door. That means there's something important behind it. So we've got to remember that for later. We're in cold storage here. Let's keep going. All right. All I got is this axe now. Oh, shit. Crap! Oh. All right, what do we got in this room?
Oh no, it's a trap!
As much as it's gonna go. We are. Here we go. Oh crap. Lift that one up. did it. We are not skewered. Oh, man. All right. Let's keep going here. Let's see. Actually, did I drop my axe? Or okay, good. I put it here. We're gonna turn this off. Damn it. Let's see. What about here? Locked door. 4 levers. This is what's called a lever lotto room. One of these is going to open the door, and the other 3 are going to do something. All right? Okay. That one opened the door. Let's see. Let's try our luck. Anything? Nothing. All right. All right. And nothing. All right, so nothing good, nothing bad. These can spawn some nasties, or they can spawn some goodies. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop here, as I could just keep playing this for a while, but I actually have to get back to finishing the update. So I'll see you outside of VR in a second.
Yo! So, out of breath Anton here, still trying to settle down from that run. It's amazing how much, despite the fact that I know just about everything that can happen in this mode, and maybe in part because of that, it gets my heart going still, like nothing else. So, the changelog beyond the mode itself is pretty short, understandably, this week, because we just had an update last week, and of course you saw the Deagle. So I thought I would tell you a little bit more about the composition of the mode and how it got done. I teased towards the beginning of this month that I was working on something in parallel to this, and this was one of those ideas that I had started sort of small. Originally, I'd been like, I'll just do sort of like just a night scene to see how that works with like a flashlight. And as October got closer and closer, I had put a lot of thought into it and had really realized that many of the things that make H3's sort of mechanics and combat interesting to me, which is the fact that they're not really accessible, they're not arcadey in their logic, they require precision. In a big way, when you have a firearm in H3, you're not like a super person with a firearm. You're far, far closer to just like Joe Schmo with a firearm, in terms of just your affordance abilities with it, the way that everything is sort of physically simulated. And I had the supposition that would naturally pair really well with a survival horror kind of experience. Especially because of the fact that one of the sort of core things that makes survival horror interesting and terrifying is player weakness, is the fact that we're not, playing Master Chief, just slapping everyone around, but we're playing some random person who might not know how to handle a gun well, who can't move super fast with, the realistic amount of ammunition one would have if one just found a firearm in a terrible situation, which is like the mag that was with it, maybe. And so yeah, so in parallel with the updates this month, basically just before October started, I started doing environment work, and I did that first in this before pretty much anything else, because as you well know, in VR, performance is the concern. And I knew that based on sort of early performance tests with sort of making an environment and how much occlusion culling in Unity would help and how much limiting, like there's no reflections in this scene at all because it's all black ambient. It's just sort of a couple real-time lights, seeing what performance would be like with that. It was through that investigation process that the muzzle flash system even happened, in part because I was like, well, you can't do a dark scene with firearms if you can't actually make a flash that is emissive to the environment around you when you fire. But obviously the problem with that in regards to VR performance is that if we want MSAA, we're stuck in what's called forward rendering. And in forward rendering, each extra light that you're adding into the situation, especially in Unity in its current form, gets substantively more expensive. And so I came up with the muzzle flash system, which actually is only ever one light. As you're playing, this might be a bad idea to give you this behind the curtains because you might notice it more now that I tell you, but everything that flashes in H3 at night, or in dark scenes like the Roman candles now, muzzle fire, etc., is only ever one light shared amongst all of the effects. Slicer's blades hitting things as well. It's a pooling system of one with this complex queuing system that ensures that like one object can't just steal the light constantly, but the light gets sort of passed around between any number of active objects that are requesting it in a fairly egalitarian way. And so when I got that working, I was like, oh, I can make this work. I can make the sort of the really intense sensory experience of being in a dark hallway, looking down a dark hallway and firing an automatic weapon, which is this like strobing effect, which causes your pupils to contract momentarily. So when you stop firing, especially if like you don't have a light that's pointed at it, or if you're using one of the less emissive sources like the Flipso lighter, for a second or so you can't see anything because it's dark and your pupils have to dilate again. So it was that effect early on really, really excited me. And it's what got me sort of going like in that like, all right, so I'm going to make a big update alongside all these other smaller updates and only show it at the end. The next step of it was the combat set, was the melee system. Was as I got into it, I was like, well, if I'm going to have these sort of close range enemies like the Slicer, like the Wiener bot that you saw, it's called a Boltwurst, by the way. I've got to have a way to hit back. Like obviously, like in a horror situation, like a gun may only, have 5 shots in it, but a wrench continues to wrench for quite a while. And so that's why that ended up getting prioritized. Was I needed to see if I could make a melee system work, and it actually works pretty well. And so 1 week into October, obviously, I then sort of realized that one of the flaws in my plan for all this was the Steam Dev Days was taking place, and that I did not, in fact, have 4 weeks to put this together. I had 3 weeks between Steam Dev Days and Indiecades. So that was a little terrifying, truth be told. I was like, my goal was if I can get the whole environment done and modeled, in occlusion culling baked and nav meshed and all of the sort of support structures for it, then I have a snowball's chance in hell of getting this ready for Halloween. And so I came back, started working on game systems and things like that, started working with the rest of the team here. It's you only see one voiced line here, but especially for those of you who don't have a Vive right now, and can't check this out immediately, it's a fully voiced mode. It was written by one of the Rust guys, Adam, and myself. I basically wrote in some structure related to sort of tags and things like that, and then he filled it out and made it brilliant and helped pull the sort of character of the narrator out of my incoherent ramblings. And then was voiced by my good buddy and Mark DeStefano, who I met when I was doing grad work at RPI, and he does the most delightful, just over the top evil for this. I've been in stitches listening to his work, and it's been so much fun to do a voiced mode like this. And then after recording, Luke found a great sort of set of filters to sort of play with and alter the voice. I had originally wanted to do a whole bunch of sort of like dynamic mixing stuff, but I've been, and you may have noticed this if you've been firing, say, like 2 machine guns at once, that sometimes the sound system in H3 can get a little bit overwhelmed, and I was having the damnedest time getting the sort of dynamic filters to give me the sonic texture that I wanted. But thankfully, Luke had just finally gotten internet at his new place. Note, if you move to another country, do not expect to get internet as fast, like instantly hooked up when you arrive, the way you can here, apparently. But yeah, so he sort of dropped a bunch of different ideas on me for voice. I had originally been thinking having it really sound like it is coming out of an intercom, but doing that is sort of almost always is like a high pass filter on the voice, and that ended up removing the sort of boomy character of Mark's deliveries. So we went with something that's a little more chorus / phasery, a little more just a little robotic, and I think it fits great. I'm still tweaking the final audio levels. It's difficult because I'm not using the mixer system in Unity yet, because I just have not had time to set it up. And then as I'm still racing again, there's a few things that were not visible in the video in this devlog because I'm still getting them in sort of fully wired into the ProcGen system. Another member of the team, Lucas, has done a whole bunch of texture work. I posted one to Twitter the other day that sort of like fleshes out the identity of the 4 areas, which actually brings to a point, the build that I'm pushing at 7 p.m. today is fully functional and it works, but it's not 100% what I really wanted to have done for Halloween. So I'm basically going to record this devlog, start it uploading, and get right back to work, push the update at 7, and continue working probably until I go to bed. I'll probably push at least one more build before I go to bed, just so that everything that I really want in there is present and just is fully bug tested. This has been such a race to get done that I've only actually gotten to play it from beginning to successful end once so far, because I keep dying. So it's always difficult to test something that is this highly sort of ProcGen oriented. There's the sort of overall layout is pretty much the same, but the contents of all of those rooms that you saw are different each time. Your starting equipment's different. Enemy positions, a bunch of other little subtle stuff, destructible object placement, contents, etc. I would, of course, love to have done something even more ProcGen, but especially with VR performance concerns, you have to rely on sort of static placement of most of the environment for it to be efficient. So, well, anyway, I'm just going to keep rambling if I talk about this. Oh, and to those of you who don't have a Vive and are watching and are like, I want to see more gameplay, I don't want to ruin the sort of the contents of the mode for anyone for anyone yet, but for Halloween I'm gonna record a playthrough right from the beginning of the game that like contains the narration and things like that, so that you can sort of see the mode proper. And I probably won't be narrating over it, so it'll just be experiencing the game. So yeah, well, I'm getting right back to work. I can't wait to hear what you folks think of this. Be warned, kind of poorly tested, might be a little bit of a performance pig. I know some people have been talking about how the new sort of like reprojection for Steam VR is helping some folks. You 970 folks might need this. This is yeah, I just have not had time to optimize much. So best of luck, and let me know if anything's horribly broken. I'll see you later. Peace.